played out at Leewood Golf Club.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
good
right.
track out there. I've played a few times. It's a nice
Yeah. Nice. Hey, everybody here sees your name, Luke Kerr-Dineen, and I've got golf.com written up here, but tell everybody why you're here.
Yeah,
Who
so I'm
are you?
here. So I came over to golf.com about a year, just 2.5 years ago. I started after I moved to New York, where I went to graduate school up at Columbia for journalism. Then I got a job straight out of grad school at Golf Digest, where I worked on the website. I was there for a couple of years. Then I hopped over to USA Today, where I covered primarily golf, but all sorts of other sports. A surprising amount of American football, actually, at USA Today.
Really?
Um, and then I came over to golf.com after it was acquired by Howard Milstein later. So the year of the year during the acquisition, excuse me, is when I came over. So that was late 2018, I believe. And yeah, and it's been a great ride so far. I oversee all the service content, so basically all the instruction stuff, all the equipment stuff, and just kind of all the blurred lines in between too. And that's kind of what we're all about at Golf Magazine, golf.com. Just trying to help
Yeah,
everyone a little bit better.
that's awesome. I talked to Zephyr for that article that you guys were kind enough to write about our virtual lessons, and I want to show one today. And he had nothing but great things to say about you. I wasn't kidding when I sent you that email. He was super enthusiastic. And then he also asked me how my day was going, what else I was going to do. I told him I was going to talk to Al Geiberger and Brad Faxon, and he asked who those people were.
Oh,
He's a
bless.
little young.
He's a
A little
little
younger.
young.
My friends are too old, maybe. That might be it.
But Nick, your team has the honor of giving Zephyr his first ever lesson. It's amazing. But
Well, he did a great job writing it too. That was good.
he did a good job. Yeah, he's a good guy, Zephyr. And yeah, he's a high school golfer. He's a good player, but he's one of
Yeah.
these homegrown Texas talents. Never had a lesson before, and now he's working on
Yeah.
a takeaway. So thank you,
That's
God.
awesome. Well, with all of your experience in golf, I like to hit with a really hard hitting question for the first one. So you've been around the block with Golf Digest, golf.com. You've done some football, some NFL stuff. So I feel like you're well equipped for the first question, which is I feel like the carnivore diet is going to be the next keto.
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Yes, absolutely. Related follow-up question. How do you feel about the design of the Tesla Cybertruck?
Is
Oh,
this
I think
is
it's
this
fantastic.
as a
Absolutely.
journalist, Luke, could you give any pointers to Nick here on
That's
journalism?
as a journalist professionally, what do you think about the views of the Tesla Cybertruck?
I think this is like a 60 minutes segue waiting, 60 minutes cameo waiting to happen. I think it's fantastic.
You're doing great so far. Those are two non-answers, Cordy. Write that down. Hey, you are around golf instruction all the time. How much do you think the average golf lesson has changed as far as quality in, say, like the last 20 years?
Yeah, I think it's night and day, and it's actually quite funny because I like relating back to my personal experience with this. I was a former college golfer and just a golf nerd my entire life, and it's been interesting to see how lessons have changed just throughout my lifetime. I'm 30 now, 31 now, and when I first started taking lessons, like it was basically like the height of video cameras, right? It was like
Yeah.
plain lines and 2D and all this stuff, and everything about golf instruction was very much related to that. It seemed. Where are you in relation to this thing right here?
Uh-huh.
And it's been interesting to see both that intensify for a little bit, and then people drifting away from that. Where there's still obviously people still use video cameras, right? But now I think students have come to expect that they're far more versed in all sorts of other things, data-wise, right? Like now suddenly people keep an eye on their swing speed and their ball speed and their angle of attack and all sorts of other things. And I think that has actually been quite liberating, at least from a golfer's perspective. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but the idea that I don't have to swing like this person's video over here, the idea that I can kind of do what I want as long as the numbers get in good shape and the contact is, that to me is actually really exciting, and I think a very good thing for golf. So that's been the biggest change I've noticed.
Yeah. The advent of launch monitors like TrackMan has coined and made some amazing terms like spin loft, and really were the first to, suppose, quantify what some people knew as the ball flight laws already. So most people most people who tried really hard, and I was not one of those when I was started teaching golf, knew that the face of the club really projected the initial direction of the ball, and then that path and face difference really made the ball curve. Some people had it very backwards at the same time. I remember asking, I don't know, 15 PGA Tour players what the ball flight laws were, and it was evenly split on who had it right and who had it wrong. It was a 50-50 coin flip on whether or not a tour player knew that. Now, if you walk up and down the range and you ask anybody, and I haven't done this in a long time, I would doubt that there are more than 5% that don't actually know that answer. So that has come so far from the player side. So the teacher side has got to be getting better. I know when I was learning how to teach golf, I was teaching golf full time in New Jersey and Connecticut, and I was pretty good at it. So people just thought I knew what I was doing. But I would swing and hit a shot, and basically it either went where I wanted to or it didn't. And then my level of frustration was based upon what that result was. Then and I never even asked my question, what starts the ball to the right and makes it curve back to the left? And why do I curve too many of them to the left too much? That would have made life so much easier. But now there isn't a teacher under the age of 30 that doesn't really know that answer. So I think it's that in and of itself has been a tremendous value and an increase in the IQ of a golf instructor.
Absolutely. And I think it succeeds in getting golfers a little more like outcome oriented, if that makes sense. You know, like,
oh, absolutely.
When I'm looking at a camera, and I used to do this all the time, right? Like I was like schooled under the Ledbetter stuff. And, you know, this is nothing negative at all. I loved it. I loved my time. But, you know, all I did was look at pictures of Nick Faldo and try to the inch to match it. And I think that that's all predicated on a notion that the closer I am to this, the better I will be. When really, like, we all know that's not entirely true, right? There's like there's an indirect relationship there, I guess is what I'm saying.
And then if you're going to copy someone like Nick Faldo, or take anybody who's got a swing you might like, if you're going to get good at it, you need to copy it all. So you have to copy where they aim. You have to copy how they grip it. You have to copy what kind of shot they're trying to hit. And all of those are serious unknowns without a lot of study too. So it's really a futile effort to try to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Luke, as far as what you guys have been putting out, you talked about some of the biggest changes. What has been the most popular instruction? Because you pay attention to this, you probably know all the trends over the last few months. What's been most popular? Does the instructor's name have the initials GG in it?
You know, like, of course, Gankus is like a great guy and a fabulous golf instructor, and he does and he certainly plays a role. But the biggest surprise to me is to me some of the stuff. It's certainly refocused the way I think about this. So let me just back up first and say that, you know, golf.com's and golf magazines average reader is like a 10 to 12 to 14 handicap who, you know, loves his golf, tries to play it all the time, but doesn't take, you know, lessons once a week. He, you know, takes a lesson every now and again, plays a lot. Kind of his goal is to break 80. This is what I'm describing as like our sort of median reader. What that guy cares about a lot is getting the ball in the hole, is about looking solid doing it, you know, because the feeling you get in your hands when you hit a terrible shot is like one of the least enjoyable things in golf, you know. So they care a lot about contact, they care a lot about getting the ball in the hole, so therefore like fundamentals of scoring, they care a lot about like looking good, they care a lot about like making what I have work for me. Like these are all like pretty common sense things, and I know it's kind of a bit of a broad answer to your question, but anything related on these themes I think is far more interesting to somebody than like an abstract concept about like, you know, how you should do this swing move, or because a lot of people I think are a lot more realistic than we give them credit for sometimes, where they're really not looking to tear everything to the ground. They're looking to play well tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's why I like a lot of strategies, right? Any like kind of strategy people are just clinging towards, any kind of, you know, specific concept they can try out seems to really be popular, because people are looking for something. What can I go try out? You know, what's something I can go test or experiment with or stuff like that.
Yeah, like the number one article on our site right now is about the scoring differences between the like what higher handicaps do differently than lower handicaps, right? And the crux of that article was that they make about 20% more putts between 5 to 10 feet. There's something like very actionable in there for our reader, right? Then go away and they can go drill short putts, and they also now have a better understanding using some pretty impressive analytics, right? It comes from the Decade Golf crew. That they have some insight into like what's separating me from that guy at their club. Stuff like that, like being very outcome oriented, is where I found the biggest success with the
outcome and data. Data is hard to find in golf, so you find that Decade data with Scott and his crew, and people love that stuff. That wasn't the case 15, 20 years ago. Data was frightening. It was far more just mysterious, that you had this magic gnome over here that sits on this table, and that's how I get better. I just need to rub that, pat its head the right way or something.
Exactly.
But now the rest of the world is caught up on how big data works. And we did I don't know, it was before your time, we did something with David D'Annunzio on the swing separators of good players and bad players using about 30,000 people. We just keep making that bigger. We're up to a couple 100,000 amateur golfers and what separates how they move versus how good they are. So I'm a huge fan of all that. And I read the article. That was really good, that it just started showing the differences between it started to feel like after you got past 5 feet, that's where that trend of just huge percentage change of good and bad make percentages really made for better golfers.
Yeah, and it's something that I think that GolfTEC does extremely well too, right? Like in terms of being outcome oriented. When I think when people go and expect a lesson nowadays, they want to see like how they're getting better right then. They don't want to be told they're getting better. They don't want a swing thought that is just, here's a swing thought just because. They want like, I want proof that I'm better now than I was. And I think that's great for golf.
And I appreciate that too. I mean, we track student surveys right now to really get our best answer, but I am all over how we test people from day one and test and retest, so that one, are you getting better? And then how much? And then the last one is probably like whether or not it's a reasonable investment or something you should do to renew with the coach that you have. It just gives you the chance to always set these goals. And I'll be the first one to love to say that that's going to work out flawlessly every time. But I want to show people real life improvement, whether it's good or bad. Set some goals and be honest with people about that. So I appreciate that one. You wrote about you had your guys write about the online lessons. I did one with Haley Hunter. You guys know who she is? Reporter in Mississippi, just started a brand new career. I thought maybe we'd look at a little bit of hers.
Awesome. Let's check it out.
Should we be hearing something, Nick? Or are we just watching?
So basically, we're starting with Haley. Yeah, sorry, I forget the volume. I don't have that on. Haley essentially makes a backswing. Let's take a look at that. And she's asking about her main pain point was really like, I want to look good when I'm out there doing it, and I don't feel like I really am. And then secondary to really Luke's point, pushing and cutting for her being left-handed, hitting shots to the left and curving further to the left were the second pain point. But she made that really clear. That wasn't number one. I just want to shorten my swing. I've been trying forever. So we were talking a little bit about essentially what you can do in our platform is pull a swing in. So that's Haley on the right. And then I can compare her to her library of professional golfers that I like to use too. It's my friend Connie Chen, who's been on the Golf Digest list. Sorry, Luke, best instructors in the world. She was just named on that. And she's an awesome player on the Ladies European Tour. The two combined of having like a really good player next to you or someone who hits the ball better than you do or doesn't exhibit the same problem you have. Doesn't have to be a tour player. It could be anybody. Put my grandmother up here on the left if she demonstrated the point that I'd want to make to Haley. Tour players and better golfers, though, tend to leave you with less models that you need to use. So you can use less people. And they're really good just to get some buy-in very quickly. So you've got Haley on the right. With the first part of her swing was at a dress that was fine, but she's got her lead knee moving inward towards her trail knee substantially. And then the part that we talked about the most was the difference in the tilt of the shoulders for Connie on the left and where her eyes are really looking or how her neck is turned. Haley makes a backswing and immediately turns her neck. And you guys could do this with me too. Imagine you're left-handed. And then from address until the shaft's parallel to the ground, turn your neck turning your head 90 degrees to the left in that small space of time and try to make a backswing. It makes you incredibly mobile, but it doesn't do anything for your ability to hit the ground in the right spot. So she could make a very long swing and struggled often with some toe hits and some fat shots with irons. So she just wanted to shorten her swing. I said, turn your head to the right in the backswing. That'll make you less mobile. And that was essentially part of our conversation here. We then went back, and I think one of the coolest parts of doing these virtual golf lessons is that then you get some feedback. So she didn't even have a golf club. She's grabbing a hockey stick. And I'm asking her really to make the backswing that we talked about so that we could figure out if her feels actually matched enough of the reality that she needed to have. So you'll see her turn around here and make a backswing where she's trying to turn her head to the right. And you'll notice how much shorter her swing is that way. That's not actually how I'd have her swing, but for her, that's a really nice way to stop doing something that she's been doing for such a long time and cannot stop, is to really exaggerate that in the other direction. Luke, question for you. How many people have you seen so far, since online lessons are getting so prevalent? How many coaches do you think are actually pretty good at delivering an online golf lesson?
How many coaches are? I don't know. The figures I see quoted from, like I was at a chat with like Sean Foley the other day down at Andrew Rice's coach camp, and he was saying that that about 50%, if you have like a 50% hit rate, like you're doing pretty well, and we're always striving to get better. So I can imagine that's probably proved out across multiple platforms. But again, like I bet the guys who have the higher success rate are the guys who are outcome oriented. They're not trying to get you to do a thing. They're trying to get you to play better tomorrow. That would be my suspicion.
No, that's good. That's like the first question you want to ask someone is, where do you hit the ball and where do you not want to hit the ball anymore? And it's unfortunately not always told that way. It usually starts with, or half of the cases, and if Sean's math is right, which I would speculate something similar, start with, show me your swing and I'll just tell you what to do. And that just doesn't cut it anymore. That's 20 years ago, like you suggested. When you have a video camera and that's the only tool you have, that's where you would start. How about, we do a ton of stuff with Golf Channel. So we probably do somewhere between 100 and 300 spots when you add it all up. And I bring this topic up to them. I'm really curious on your point of view. You feel like there's a risk of golf instruction being just dumbed down way too much because of like quick hitting spots, 60-second spots on the Golf Channel, Instagram posts that have to be less than 60 spots, 60 seconds, social media posts that are really just quick hitting. Do you feel like that's really deteriorating the message of what golf instruction should be?
So it's a really good point. And it honestly, like, I think if you talk to anybody at Golf Channel, if you talk to Rudy over at Digest, a good friend of mine, and you ask me, like, that is the issue that we're constantly that's the balance we're constantly trying to find. Because the truth is like, we're all nerds about this stuff, right? Like, I love going deep on all of it. What golf.com does is reflect what our readers want. Our readers don't want wrong information. They aren't opposed to complicated information. They just want something like applicable that they can use, because they're not necessarily nerds. Like I was saying, he's a 14 handicapper who's playing tomorrow. He's got a round. He doesn't necessarily care about the torques and forces of stuff. He just wants the good side of it. He wants the benefits of that. Right. And so I think that context is really important. That is there a risk? Of course, there's a risk. And it's something that we, like everybody in the golf media, really needs to stay laser focused on, making sure that the right information is getting out there, being the number one priority, 100%. And then but sometimes it's about putting it in a way that our readers can understand, because you'll be, Nick, better than I do, but I'm amazed sometimes that, we put a poll out the other day, something like 30-something% of our readers didn't know what a reverse overlap putting grip is. Like, that's a very real experience of golfers everywhere that we need to make sure that we're educating them in some pretty basic ways sometimes, so that when we say, hey, you need to strengthen your grip, that they know that doesn't mean squeeze harder. That means, move your hand. So I think the context around this is all really, really important. And I think that that's, you know, at the end of the day, golfers do want something, a quick tip that they can apply.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know, sorry, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but really,
no, you're doing great. You're really talking about how, I mean, people consume information just different. If I grab my phone and I see a 20-minute video, I'm just going to go like this and figure out what I'm going to watch next. So it's totally fair and valid that way. I appreciate your insight or your viewpoint and the respect you have towards trying to tell the right message. That's hard in some mediums. I don't get the same sense from all of them that they're actually are trying really hard to make sure that what you're saying is right. And that's not necessarily their job. So you're going above and beyond too. And we're trying to be respectful of people too. We do 15-second tips that you can find on our website or Instagram, 60-second stuff. I don't know. I'll do some things for an hour once in a while. We do this show 3 days a week try to make it 20 minutes. It usually turns into 45. It's just how it goes. So people can have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Nick, I was going to say, Nick, this is a 20-minute show. So you watch it. You don't watch other 20-minute shows, but you do watch this one though, right? If this popped up, you would watch this?
Well, it's longer than 20 minutes, so I watch those.
Okay, there we go.
20 is, I don't like that 20.
No, it's a really interesting point, Luke. I think that I've discovered the same thing in my career, is that in golf, we take so many things for granted that people know what things are that they actually don't. Mm-hmm. That I've kind of like, I love asking the dumb questions, and like, what is the reverse overlap grip? Like, can we please define that for the audience? You know, I definitely know myself, so I'm not asking for myself, but you know, can we just define that for everybody? I feel like that's in golf, we're so afraid to ask all these questions because we feel like we should know them because I'm a 10 handicap. I should know this by now, right? When, you know, it's difficult, you know, just in any hobby, but anything in life, but it's difficult to ask those questions when you just don't know something. But unfortunately, it's not cool necessarily, but it can be really helpful to understand a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Cordy, did you notice that when you said, I like to ask the dumb questions, that I didn't do or say anything? It was so easy. It was like a 2-inch putt you put out there. I restrained. Didn't even bring it up.
I am so proud of you, Nick. I'd love to hear your jokes. I'm sure the crowd would as well. So if you got any lined up, just, I mean, let them go. That's what we're here for.
No, I'm not going to tell any today.
Okay, cool. Good.
Okay. But yeah, I think to your point, Cordy, like, you know, if we want to grow golf, right? If we want more people in this industry, we need to stop scaring them away, like in every way, shape.
That's right.
And I think that, and we also need to realize that you know, some other people tend to overestimate two things: how much people know, how much people care. Because even people just want to know how to hit the ball a little better. They don't care how. They just want to do that. They want to play this game better. So I think that, you know, making that process as easy as possible is kind of, to them, is
what they know and do they care. Man, we went through this production conundrum ourselves. I even noticed that no one actually cares how we produce these videos. We could do these even far better, and it would matter to some people, but most people are just interested in the message that you have, so they'll consume it via something on your iPhone. I mean, that's we talked about internet celebrities of golf instruction. Most of them are just using their iPhone to shoot some content, and poof, they're gone. Quality isn't great, and it's fine. People are just ready for fast disposable content in that regard.
Yeah, you know, I think there's.
I mean, Nick, there's really no reason to have all this, right? Like, why?
I didn't even know you had that.
Why even try? Yeah, you know, it's just a couple dollars.
What's on your workbench over there? Like a fake hammer and a plastic screwdriver? What do you have? I saw some.
There's a gimbal over there. This is all camera gear in here.
Yeah.
This is all camera gear and golf gear. There's stuff.
No, I'm starting to get to be a nerd over that too, so I'm interested in that one. Luke, how about this for a follow-up question? Then, so you've got so many different ways you can learn, from those short tips to long videos, and you can find internet celebrities to find golf instructors or take golf lessons. But how do you think golfers should go ahead and start their journey on improving?
So I think the biggest thing, like, you know, as not a teacher, as a like journalist, so somewhere in the middle of a teacher and a student, if somebody was like, Luke, how should I get better? I would say, look, you should take lessons. I would agree with the taking lessons. I would commit to a batch of lessons, A. And B, I think it's imperative that you know what your teacher is teaching you, if that makes sense. You know, because I think, as we sort of talked about earlier, basically everything in golf works, you know, like it's all about matchups at the end of the day. And, you know, and in my opinion, like it seems like a big shallow move that may work for some people, works for those people because it's matched up in certain ways, and the opposite can work because, you know, the opposite's matched up. But really, like, I think people are going to be predisposed to doing certain things based on their body type. And I think that it's really important that they go into a lesson knowing, like, okay, what is this teacher about to teach me? Is he going to teach me towards like a method that I may not be physically suited to, or am I going to be, you know, pulled off in some other direction? I think like the it's something that I think a lot of golfers gloss over. The idea that different teachers have different teaching methods because there are different theories out there.
Yeah. We're gonna take a look at one of those. I'm ready for that. But are you suggesting like research your instructor online? Is that kind of where you're headed as the best way to do that?
Yeah, because, you know, or just creating like a pretty transparent dialogue with a, you know, I guess being like a critical student, right? When you're asking me to do like that, why are you asking me to do that?
Great.
Is kind of all I want. I think if I was my son, you know, when he comes into this world, plays golf, I would want him to be asking those kind of questions. You know, why is this important? I think is something that students probably, a good student asks all the time, and your average student probably doesn't ask all that much.
Okay, keep going down that road. What else do you think students should be asking of their golf instructor? Other questions like that?
Yeah, is this going to make me worse before it makes me better? I think
That's a good one.
is probably a fair question to ask. What is like the result of this? Like, what will I get out of this change? You know, I think it is one. Why are you getting me to do this? Is obviously one from before.
I might even go on to your second point, add a little color to that one. When I'm doing what you say, what should I expect my ball flight to be, and what should the miss hit be? Would be an important one. That way, that's the only way you can help yourself regulate whether or not you're doing something enough, not enough, or way too much on your own, would be to know what that outcome should be. And then your coach should get that right. And if he doesn't, might need to reconsider what you're listening to and go a different direction.
Hey Nick, just to flip that around though, shouldn't the coach be asking those questions to the student before this even starts?
Well, the coach should be telling them. You know, like you're nailing it. You should start with where's the ball start? Or even before that, where do you typically hit it on the club? Where's the ball start? Which way is it curve? How often does that happen? Does it happen with every club? If you don't do that, where else does it go? And what are you really trying to get out of your time with me? All those are really good questions. And then once you get into that, they get past that layer of just the question asking by the coach, and then the instructor does something to the student's motor program. Then that's the time where anybody watching this who's taking a golf lesson should be asking, if your coach doesn't tell you, if you do this too much, you'll see the ball go too far to the left now instead of the right. Do you understand? And you just have that buy-in and agreement of expected outcomes before you even start.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Nick. And I think this is something too that, like, I've heard Pete Cowan students talk a lot about. What he does with them is that he doesn't just it's not just to do this and it will do this sort of lesson. It's also like if it starts hooking, this is why, and how will you solve that problem? Because look, like, if I do anything long enough, it'll start getting to the extreme end of the spectrum.
Right.
It's important to know that, right?
And then what to do next. I mean, those are your follow-up lessons of if you hook too much, here's how you take some of that curve off, whether you're left wrist extension or you watch the video we did yesterday, Cordy. I mean, those are all important parts. That's an awesome tip there by Pete. Luke, I get asked this question all the time. I ask Matt Rudy the same thing all the time. We have somewhere between 700 and 850 GOLFTEC coaches all over the country, and hundreds of those, a huge percentage of those, are really good teachers. They ask me all the time, how do I get recognized on like your top teacher lists? Do you have any advice for those people so that I can stop giving it to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like, I think ultimately the thing that I want to communicate to teachers is that, like, golf.com doesn't have a swing philosophy, doesn't have a swing theory. We are a platform. We are trying to, we can't contradict ourselves because we are trying to shine a light on the voices in golf. And so per like our list and Golf Digest's list is that, we do it slightly differently, but ultimately it comes down to two things: your track record, and this doesn't mean that you're bringing people onto the PGA Tour and having them win majors necessarily, right? Like that's something that I'm always striving to figure out how we can do better. Is that there's so much value in taking mid 90 shooter down to breaking 80, right? In some ways that's hugely important. But like if you have a track record of doing this, or if your niche is tour players and do you have a track record of succeeding wherever you reside, basically, that's going to be important. The fact that you can prove that and show that and point to it and it's evidence-based is really important to me. And then also like your body of work within the industry itself, right? So like, are you contributing to golf instruction in some way, shape, or form? Now, what that means to me is this sort of, as a judge on this thing, is that how are you pushing the industry forward? You've always got your track record of what you're doing for students, but then how are you making the way like golf instruction is a better place? Whether it be contributing research, whether it be sort of adding, bringing more people into the game via social media is a really important thing.
Sure.
There's all sorts of ways that can manifest itself. But the fact is that you're like helping make golf instruction better and smarter every single day, and you can point to that track record too, is also something that's.
I appreciate that perspective because you're right. Not every teacher wants to teach tour players. I know I don't have that desire to do that anymore, and a bunch of my friends are the same way. We've got these coaches who help thousands of people every day, and it's good to help. You put that at ease by saying you need to keep doing that. Help thousands of people every day. Track their progress of how much better they've gotten. That's how you can get recognized as being one of the best teachers in the game.
Yeah, and like, look, it's the whole scheme of things, it's a small list, right? But ultimately, like, I don't care what your categorization is, as long as you're the best at it, right? If you're the best at taking slicing 95 shooters down under 80, then that is just as valuable to me as somebody who says I'm a tour coach who, and ultimately the majority of our audience, majority of golfers are regular golfers, right? If you have a proven track record that you have taken those guys and made them better, that isn't of negative value in the slightest.
I appreciate you saying that, Luke. That is an army of people that we have that do just that every single day. 95 to 80 is like, I'm not going to say that's a quarter of our lessons, but it might be that much, man. It's our coaches are good at that. Check this one out. Put your hat on for this one. I think this one is always interesting. So first, I'm looking at just a very popular teacher group inside of Facebook. Facebook's really almost become like the de facto golf instruction learning place to be. It really is, because of the interaction that you can get with so many people. So it's not the education derived from the PGA always is the way that people learn how to teach golf. So I think these groups are super important. I try to participate in them, even though it's challenging at times because of like the commentary on the right. So here's a coach. He's actually, and these are all teachers that we're going to look at commentary on here from. And I'm not even worried about like the names, but check this out. The coach asked for some help on his swing. Here's the typical advice that I see that like makes my head spin and makes me immediately close these windows. Keep your right elbow pointed more towards the ground. Feel the club go out and then around and not in and up, and just really exaggerate in front of a mirror the cure. Thanks for the advice. I'll try this later. Your lack of turn and tilt is causing poor wrist conditions and lack of arm structure. Squeeze your elbows together. I mean, there's a whole host of just different pieces of advice. There are 50 comments really on that page. They're all radically different. So I suppose my question then there is, what do you think about the massive disorganization of like the teacher education and the way that people teach without any sort of organized golf teaching system?
Yeah, no, it's I mean, this kind of goes back to, I think, what we were saying earlier, right? Where in social media hasn't changed any of this. It's really just kind of amplified it maybe a little
Yeah,
bit,
absolutely.
or showcased it, because it all used to effectively happen offline. So in some ways it's great that it's more transparent, right? But anyway, this is where like golf isn't quite like uh, a cure to a golf swing is not like the same to a cure to a disease, right? Where like there's one way of doing it. There's going to be a few different opinions on how you should approach it. And it's super hard to be able to, at least, from where I'm sitting, it's really hard to be able to say which one is like quantifiably better than another one, right? But this is why the burden then shifts back onto the student, and you have to just be critical. You have to say, why do you want me to do this? What will this do to my swing? Why do you want my elbows pointing down? Because it will help, it will help get this shaft more on plane. Like, why will, it's just like, you need to just keep asking why.
Yeah.
Because ultimately your goal is nothing other than hitting the ball straighter and better and slightly further, right? And I feel like if somebody can't very directly answer that question in a pretty simple way, then it's a red flag as a student, right? It's just about being a discerning student. And I think teachers would love to have students. I mean, all the teachers I've talked to, they say that the best students they have are the ones who are not fighting them on stuff, but questioning, like, why do you want me to do this? What will this help? Because ultimately they're just trying to learn too.
We talk about that regularly on this show, how it's the criticism, the critique, the questioning, the answering that really makes all of your teaching system stronger. So if a teacher isn't welcoming that, I don't really have a lot of sympathy for people like that. You should be able to answer a question if it's about golf. If you're a golf instructor professionally, that's your job. So I think your perspective on that, I don't know, it's like you watched a couple of our shows or something. You almost said that verbatim to what I try to bring up frequently.
I'm a big fan of the show, Nick, as you're recording now. I'm a long time first time.
We got a few thousand people who are watching you right now, judging every word out of your mouth, Luke. Since they're judging you, how about that? You worked at Golf Digest and golf.com. Where'd you like working the best?
Oh, it's like having two. It's like having a brother and a sister. You love both of them equally, but in different ways.
Bertie does not like my journalism tactics for sure.
No, but in all seriousness, I love Golf Digest. I grew up reading it just as I did Golf Magazine. I still friends with so many guys over there. I think they do great work, and I think golf is a better place when both these brands are coexisting. And frankly, like, pushing each other to get better, but also by like, I don't think we approach things in a one-to-one thing anymore. I don't think there's an army of people out there who are saying, "Oh, I'm team Golf Magazine and screw Golf Digest." No, I think people just want more golf stuff. Like,
yes, I love it. Well, and you mentioned Matt Rudy. I talk to Matt frequently to do stuff with those guys. He thinks the world of you. He's known you since you started at golf.com. So I know that you've got a friend in arms there. I think so. Yeah, Matt Rudy.
He's the goat. Like, it's like it's learning from Butch, just in golf journalism rather than golf itself.
Nice. Well, if you got anything,
can I end on an opinion, Nick? I got a thought to end on.
Can I ask one question first, or you just want to go to your opinion? One more.
I don't know. There have been 3 questions you've asked today which have been questionable. So I don't know if we give you another one.
What if it's serious this time? I really mean it.
Well, all right. Sure.
Luke, what do you have coming up in either something online or in the magazine that people need to read next?
Oh, I am currently drowning and planning an upcoming feature. We're going to have, I can't give too many details away, but it's going to be a
teaser.
Going to be a really big, in volume package for an upcoming issue, which I think is really exciting and helpful. But from a variety of different voices. But ultimately, like, it's the stuff I'm a digital guy by nature. It's I kind of grew up online. That's where my passion is, and I think the stuff that we're doing on a day in, day out basis on the site is stuff that I'm really proud of. And I hope it might not be for everyone, but I hope people give it a go and see if it helps them. And I'd love any feedback if it's not.
No, man. I think your magazine in particular has really gotten a lot better in the last 7, 8, 10 years. Not to say it was bad before, but know that comes from a place of I have to scrutinize some of that stuff that's in there. So I think you guys are doing great. Even like the production quality of the magazine itself, everything that you've done, or everything that Howard's helped you do too, seems like it's working out pretty well.
Yeah, he's been
Cordy,
he's been
your question.
No, I think that your instruction segment in the magazine is awesome now, Luke. I think it's a really good tool. I always go to it says who I am, but I always open the magazine and then I go to the back first. So
good. That's the goal. Yeah. Ultimately, like, I think if there's one thing I want teachers to realize, it's that, this isn't, we are a platform, and we're trying to help raise the profile and lift up teachers, period. That's what we're trying to do. And that's why, and I think occasionally somebody who doesn't quite realize that will come along and say, well, why are you featuring contradictory tips? Why is Golf Magazine telling me to do 2 different things? Golf Magazine isn't telling you to do 2 different things. This is 2 different teachers, different approaches. Our job is to communicate who these work for. That's challenging, but that is the fun challenge for this.
Well, that's great. We've got hundreds or thousands of teachers that are going to hear you say that from this video. So that's great. I'm glad you could get that message out, because I know you're in that tough spot. Like you said, that the 100 teachers that make your list is a tiny amount of golf instructors, but everybody thinks that they're probably worthy of one of those spots. So setting those expectations and helping them understand you are just the gatekeeper of that information. You're not controlling what people say. You're just trying to hold it and put it out so people can see it.
No one controls it, is the honest truth. It is, if you have a body of work, it gets recognized. That's the one thing I'm certain of.
Yeah, that's nice. Cordy.
All right, here's my thought. Based on the conversation, I would say to think about great instructors ask great questions. I think that's one of the keys that I've seen from hanging around some top coaches. And so I think folks should maybe reflect back on some of their golf lessons and think about, did my teacher ask me some good questions? Were there some good questions asked that helped them better teach me? Or was it a lot of just teaching with not much context? I think that's something to think about as folks are thinking about their golf instruction and kind of their experience with it.
Yeah, I think that's wise words. It reminds me too of something Mark Immelman's podcast when Butch was on the other day, where he was saying like, he was very much of the opinion that like these can be complicated concepts, but they're made easy and they're important questions. That's really the goal of all of it.
Love it. Well, let's end on that, guys. That's a good place to end. Luke, folks should follow you on Twitter to see golf swings of professionals and witty commentary.
That's right, Luke.
That's the call to action.
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I think you guys are doing great work, so I appreciate it.
Oh man, thanks for taking it out of your busy day from tweeting witty comments about tour professionals.
We will see everybody next week. Nick and I will be back we'll be back. We will be back.
Are we going to get divorced, or you think we'll make it another week, Cordy? I feel like our relationship is a little rocky right now.
I apologize for judging your questions so harshly today.
No, that's fine. I'm cool with that.
All right. Well, sounds like we'll be back next week then.
Next week. We'll try one more.
We'll see you then.